Our next question for the jury: is Trump a political genius? Joining me is James Morrow, US reporter and Outsiders host here at Sky News Australia, who says yes. And he's up against Stephen Loosley, former Labor senator and fellow at the United States Study Centre. Hello to both of you. Thanks for joining us on the program this evening. James, how has Trump gotten this far? Is he a campaign mastermind? What is it?
Well, I think the thing, Danica, that you need to understand about Trump is that there's something about him that triggers his enemies so much that they wind up going to such wild extremes to stop him that it helps him. And just to pick up on one thing you said in your introduction, you talked about those court cases. Well,
yes.
An awful lot of those court cases are nakedly political attempts. And I think Americans look at this and they say, come on, you're trying to get somebody on a fraud charge for taking out loans and paying them back. This is politics. This is not the American way.
Right. OK, well, that's an interesting point. Stephen, what do you think about that? Why don't you think he's a political genius, despite, as we've just said, all these criminal cases?
James would be on stronger ground if he was arguing that Homer Simpson should be recommended for the Nobel Peace Prize for Physics. I mean, Trump is no genius by any stretch of the imagination, by any criteria. For a start, if he were a political genius, he would have won a second term. He would have beaten Joe Biden last time around. As it is, he's now bracketed with the first-term presidents such as Herbert Hoover or Jimmy Carter. And that clearly is a case of mediocrity. It's easy for the Trump NZ position to say that the charges against him, 91 of them, by the way, across multiple jurisdictions, state and federal, are politically driven. If you look at them, there's no way that Jack Smith, as the special prosecutor for the Department of Justice, is politically driven.
What do you think about that, James?
No, I mean, look, without getting into the weeds of these cases, and I'm sorry, Stephen, these are political cases. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York State, ran for office. You run for office in the states for Attorney General. And she said in speeches, we're going to go get Trump. Vote for me and we'll get Trump. And what did she do? They brought a case where they said that his 100-room club in Florida was not worth what he said to the banks, and therefore this was fraud. But, on the question of his political acumen...
Can you also argue that the New York judiciary is politically driven?
It is.
Well, that is an extraordinary circumstance which will be overturned on appeal. There's no question about that.
So these are the same. We've seen these cases, the Colorado case.
You didn't want to get into the weeds, but you are actually deep in the weeds already.
Well, no, I'm afraid not, because, the other things that he's done is he's realigned, I think, the Republican Party from being the party of, big business, country club capital, to being a party that's looking after working Americans. He called time on the globalist free trade agenda, which was shipping jobs overseas from NAFTA onwards, and both parties were into that. He's the only one who wants to secure the southern border. You've got Joe Biden out there just hours ago apologizing for calling somebody illegal.
It is Trump's